Iran's president has accused Israel and the US of involvement in a deadly bomb attack that killed 95 people and warned that those responsible will pay a high price. Israel says it's on high alert for an escalation with Hezbollah after one of Hamas's top leaders was killed in a strike in Beirut.
With the European elections only 6 months away, June could be a turning point for far-right forces in the EU.
Iran's president has warned those responsible for a deadly bomb attack that they will pay a high price. At least 95 people died and over 200 were injured at a commemoration for a prominent Iranian general killed by the US in 2020. No one has claimed responsibility for what appears to be the bloodiest militant attack to target Iran since its 1979 Islamic Revolution. While President Raisi accused Israel and the US of involvement, Iran has multiple foes who could be behind the assault, including exile groups, militant organisations and state actors. Satellite images showed large crowds of people on Wednesday gathered to mark the 4th anniversary of the killing of General Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Revolutionary Guard's elite Quds force. 2 explosions occurred near his gravesite as hundreds of people gathered for the event. The US State Department has dismissed accusations of involvement as ridiculous.
The United States was not involved in any way, and any suggestion to the contrary is ridiculous. And number 2, we have no reason to believe that Israel was involved in this explosion.
Wednesday's attack comes amid heightened tensions in the region after the deputy leader of the Iran-backed Palestinian group Hamas was killed in an apparent Israeli drone strike in Lebanon. The authorities have declared Thursday as a national day of mourning. Israel says it carried out strikes on Lebanese territory against infrastructure linked to Hezbollah. Israel's army has said it's on high alert for an escalation with the militant group after a top Hamas leader was killed in a strike in Beirut. The death of Salah al-Aruri, the most senior Hamas member killed since the conflict in Gaza erupted nearly 3 months ago, has been blamed on Israel, despite no claim of responsibility. 24 hours after the strike, Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah said that Israel should expect a response and punishment and warned that if the enemy thinks of waging a war on Lebanon, it will come at a very high cost. Meanwhile, Israeli troops fighting in Gaza Strip were seen regrouping and restocking in southern Israel as heavy fighting raged in central and southern Gaza on Wednesday. Israel's air, ground and sea offensive in Gaza has killed more than 22,000 people, according to Palestinian authorities. Intensive battles in and around Khan Yunis in the south of Gaza have been continuing for several days. Israel says an IDF fighter jet struck an Islamic Jihad weapons production complex. The UN says 5 people were killed in an attack on the Palestinian Red Crescent building in Khan Yunis as Israel urges people to evacuate the city.
Rescuers are racing to find survivors of the 7.6 magnitude earthquake that took place on New Year's Day. Ishikawa officials reported 179 people remain unaccounted for. At least 84 people have died. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has instructed ministries and agencies to prioritize saving lives.
今なお倒壊した建物の下に残され、そして助けを待つ方々、現場の総力を挙げて一人でも多くの方の救命救助を目指してまいります。
About 30,000 households in the Ishikawa prefecture were without power as of 5 a.m. on Thursday. Some 110,000 households in the prefectures of Ishikawa, Toyama and Niigata are still without water. There have been nearly 600 tremors as of Thursday morning in the area. Weather officials are warning that continued rainfall in the affected areas could raise the risks of further landslides and are calling on people to be vigilant. A major shift is taking place in Europe. According to an analyst, the European elections in June might be a turning point for far-right forces in the EU. Those parties are already far from being on the fringes of the political spectrum, taking on their own government roles or collaborating alongside mainstream right-wing parties. Ahead of June's European elections, an analyst from European Elects predicts that the far-right's result could be summed up as the second political force in the European Parliament.
According to our data, as of December 2023, there's been the highest result of the Identity and Democracy group of Marine Le Pen and Matteo Salvini in 3 years, with the group scoring a 12% result. And as of the European Conservatives and Reformists of Prime Minister Meloni or the outgoing Polish government of Law and Justice, that result is around 11%. Which means that combined the two, completely disregarding the likelihood of those two forming a group together, which is one of the things that people are discussing, that would be a result of 23%, which would be around the same as the result of the European People's Party, the centre-right.
Despite the general electoral increase of the extreme right, it will be difficult for far-right parties to unite and form a common political group, mostly because of the ideological differences between them. This could lead to a cooperation on specific issues to change the tone and the decisions at European level, as well as the general shift towards right-wing policies.
There's a substantial difference in how those parties perceive matters such as European integration or approach towards Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. Matters such as immigration, especially, are ones that are quite often the main driving factor as far as people voting for those parties goes. Which is why, even if there is no merger of ECR and ID and Fidesz, this could certainly affect the coalition that could be formed after the next election, especially with movements such as Manfred Weber's of the EPP, who's been very much insistent on cooperation with ECR.
Not only are the parties divided, but so are the European member states. As the analyst reminds us, the vote for the European elections goes through the national perspective, which often differs greatly between the member states.
Europe's longest reigning living monarch, Queen Margrethe II of Denmark, took her last official golden carriage ride through Copenhagen on Thursday, ahead of her abdication set for the 14th of January. Thousands braved the freezing temperatures, strong winds, snow and sleet to catch a glimpse of the Queen in what's set to be her last public appearance as monarch. Her abdication will mark the end of her 52-year reign. The 83-year-old will hand the throne to her eldest son, Crown Prince Frederick.
Influenza infections and COVID cases are on the rise in Spain, and in some areas they've shot up 140% in 1 week. Hospitals are already struggling, and the worst is expected for the middle of this month. The increase is related to social contact during the Christmas season. Professionals are once again focusing on the reinforcement of primary care as a barrier and are pushing the importance of vaccinations, which this year has been lower than usual.
A top court in Argentina has suspended a package of labor reforms involving more than 300 measures announced by the country's new president, Javier Milei. The measures, which have already sparked protests, aim at deregulating the country's economy, which is in free fall. However, the main union group, the General Labour Confederation, who brought the legal challenge, argued that the changes affected workers' rights and are planning a nationwide strike for the end of the month. Milei's government said it would appeal the court's ruling.
It was the moment social media users had been waiting for. Previously sealed court documents revealing the names of those connected to the late millionaire philanthropist and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been made public. It's part of a lawsuit related to his former girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell. However, the documents largely mentioned figures whose names were already known, including high-profile friends of Epstein's and victims who have spoken publicly. Those named are not accused of wrongdoing.
Please crash.
The first person to beat the legendary video game Tetris has been revealed as a 13-year-old boy in the US. In late December, Willis Gibson managed to go beyond the highest level of the falling block challenge, causing the software to crash, an outcome considered the ultimate victory in the gaming world. The moment and Willis's reaction was captured on camera. Tetris, which was created by Nintendo 40 years ago, doesn't have a scripted ending and has long been considered unbeatable.
A judge in a court in Las Vegas has been brutally attacked by a defendant she was sentencing for a violent crime. As Judge Mary Kay Holthus read out her ruling, 30-year-old Deobra Dillon Redden charged from the courtroom floor and jumped on top of her. Court officials and lawyers intervened to restrain him but could not prevent Redden from landing several blows on the shocked victim. Holthus sustained slight injuries but did not require hospital treatment. Redden is now facing fresh assault charges.
Staff at London Zoo have been busy counting the thousands of animals as part of its annual census. The zoo is home to more than 300 different species, great and small, from giant tortoises to millipedes. All the data goes to a database that's then shared with other zoos across the world. Crucially, it supports breeding programmes to ensure sustainable long-term populations. London Zoo looks after many endangered animals, including some species which are extinct in the wild.